so we will be staying with you for the time being. This warning goes into effect immediately until 5:15 for the next 35 minutes at this point. This is a storm that the National Weather Service in the Des Moines area has been keeping an eye on. Rotation is there on that storm, and it has been with that storm, and it just really has started to tighten up enough that they went ahead and issued that severe thunderstorm warning. So tornado warning. Does not include Waterloo Cedar Falls. Those communities are not included in this. In fact, it's mainly the very outside edges of these counties. So Denver, Reedland, areas west of Fairbank along Highway 281, you're included in this tornado warning that goes until 5:15. We're going to go ahead and put on the velocity scope here to show you where the area of concern is with this storm. I'm going to go ahead and try to get the right radar site. There it is, just southwest of Denver at this point. It's this area. It still is relatively broad in terms of an overall picture, but we do have that possibility as the storm moves through the area. So we do want to give it the proper respect. And if you live inside this tornado warning, which we'll highlight here again, that's where you need to seek shelter immediately. Areas like Reedland, Denver, as well as Oran. In terms of safety tips for that, make sure you get to the lowest floor of your home, away from windows. A basement is best if you've got one. If you do not have a basement, that's okay. We can deal with lowest floor of the home with many walls between you and the outside at this point. That's where we're looking for you to stay safe. Cover your head and neck with blankets and pillows. That would be the best we could see there. And also just stick with us for updates. We're going to be with you here until this warning expires or is canceled from the National Weather Service. Again, it's a radar indicated warning at this point, although they did have a report of a funnel cloud from emergency management near the Bremer-Blackhawk County line. So at least there's a little bit of ground truth there from some officials in the area. So certainly it does pose a threat. We've got a view from our Cedar Falls City Cam, which I'm going to go ahead and pull up here. Bear with me for a moment. You can see that looking to the north. We'll go ahead and take max one full for the moment, Adam, if you don't mind. There's the area that we're most concerned about. That's a wall cloud with this storm. Right now, we don't see anything underneath it, which is good. The area that we would be looking out for would be on the far right side of your screen. I'm going to highlight it here. It's this portion along the bottom of the storm, but nothing there that would scream tornado to me at this point right now, which is good, again, but certainly an ominous looking storm. It's got more organization to it than the storm that was in Buchanan and Delaware County. Those storms have weakened a little bit more as they move into an area that saw some steadier rain during the afternoon that caused those storms to weaken a little bit more. And so that's that. But here toward the Blackhawk and Bremer County areas, we still do have plenty of energy for these storms to work with. Let's take a look at pinpoint Doppler radar again. Adam, you can go ahead and put the boxes back up too. Thank you very much. We've got those areas of storms, and I'm going to go ahead and switch the radar view again to give us a picture of this storm. It is small, like all the storms that we've seen today. But there has been indications from the Weather Service of it strengthening, both in the form of additional areas of lightning, mostly out ahead of this at this point, toward the Reedland area and far northern Blackhawk County. But for the most part, we are seeing a fairly short storm once again. Doesn't mean that it can't produce a tornado. We've seen those with shallow storms in the past, and that can sometimes occur. In the lower right box of your screen, you see that storm in terms of its ability to produce rotation, that wall cloud. It is rotating based on information we have from the radar, some very broad rotation visible on the camera as well. And that's just kind of what we're facing. We've got the atmosphere that could produce either damaging winds or tornadoes today with that threat materializing at times. Again, this warning goes until 5:15 for areas that are included, such as Denver. You should certainly be in your safe spot there. Reedland and even toward Fairbank. Again, you're just outside of this warning. Dunkerton as well, just on the southern fringe of this warning. It's pretty close to your area, though, so I would recommend at least keeping an eye on things, seeking shelter as the storm gets a little bit closer. I'm going to go ahead and pop on a storm track here. It's moving to the east at 35 miles per hour, so it is similarly relatively slow moving. So some very heavy rain is likely with this too, but it is moving a little bit more due east than northeast than the last storm. which does indicate that this storm may have a little bit of more access to some of that ingredient that would make it rotate a little bit more, which is a little bit concerning. And I think that's part of the reason why the National Weather Service went with a warning here. Klinger at 4:56, Fairbank at 5:10. On the very outside of this as well, Childs Access County Park, if you live close to that area in northern Blackhawk County, that's where we're seeing some of that activity as well. TV9's meteorologist A.J. Rickman with me as well. A.J., we've been tracking these storms all afternoon. It's just one of those days, again, where we have some of that energy around that could produce some of these storms. They've been isolated at this point, but we have been also keeping an eye out for any sort of organization, too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been one of those days where it's just hot, it's steamy, like we've been the last couple of weeks. But today's one of those days where tornadoes or tornadic storms with the potential to produce tornadoes were able to form and take advantage of it. We had a little bit of wind shear, and storms were able to take advantage of those upper level winds to organize themselves to where they rotate a little bit. And it's been one of those days where we've watched a couple storms so far already. This is the second one that's had a tornado warning on it. And it's continuing to track off to the east. There's a wall cloud on it we can see right now on the city cam. And as we go through the day, we're going to be watching the threat for more of these storms to pop up. Later on tonight, it looks like there's going to be the formation of a line of storms that'll form along the cold front. They'll push off to the south, and then by the time we get to midnight, the threat's going to be over. But until we get to that point, we'll be watching these storms as they take advantage of this really, really soupy, muggy air we've been dealing with. The other thing, too, is with the high dew points, and as long as we've had this moisture in the area, there's a lot for these storms to utilize to produce some heavy rainfall. So along with the tornado threat, the wind threat, and the possibility for a couple of storms that could produce some hail, we're going to be watching the threat for some really heavy rainfall. And we'll be watching for the possibility of some potential flash flooding risk related to that, as again these storms could produce some locally heavy downpours just because there's so much water in the atmosphere that they can utilize to produce this heavy rain. So, but right now, like I said, the primary thing we're watching is this tornado warning that is currently in effect, and we've got the wall cloud pulled up that we're watching on the Cedar Falls City Cam, and we'll be watching the storm as it tracks off to the east. Hopefully it does not get any stronger and drop a tornado, but for right now it is rotating, and we will be monitoring it to see if it ends up producing a tornado.
Sure will. And we are also monitoring another storm here in eastern Iowa too. There's a severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Winneshiek as well as Allen-McKee County. Go ahead and pull that one up for you as well. Just kind of give you a reminder of the additional threat up in our northeastern counties too for folks up there. Decorah about to see some of that storm activity move through very, very soon. In fact, they're seeing heavy rain and some slight wind gusts, it looks like at this point. But the winds are not that strong from our city cam's point of view, which is good news there, just looking here off the air. Otherwise, that warning goes until 5:45 for portions of those counties you see here highlighted in orange. We're going to go ahead and put a storm track on this one too, just so folks up there know what to expect. It's this storm that's kind of developed into a little bit of a line that's moving to the east. So Decorah, it's really right on your doorstep right now, likely experiencing that heavy rain. Canoe at about 5:01, Waukon at about 5:33, and then getting toward the Lansing area. Again, very tail end, far eastern side of this warning is where we see the potential for that storm to arrive there by 5:44. But our main concern at this point is areas to the south, closer to the Highway 20 corridor, where we have a tornado warning for southern Bremer as well as northern Blackhawk County. This goes for another 25 minutes here in these portions of the area. Notice how isolated the storm is, but it does produce that threat for a little bit of rotation that could produce a tornado. That area of concern just crossing Highway 63 at this point, very near Denver. It's really walking right along the county line there. It looks like we just got a new update from the National Weather Service. Still radar indicated. Very near Denver, moving east at 35 miles per hour. The good news is that they do have spotters that do have a good eye on this storm as well. A lot of folks out and keeping an eye on the conditions here today, which is what we like to see from the National Weather Service. Let's go ahead and take a look at our velocity view again, just to give a little bit of an idea of that. So this is actually coming from the radar that's up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, in terms of this view. So that's where we're seeing that for now. I'm going to go ahead and bear with me as I switch it back to that. You can sort of see what we're talking about. In this terms, in it's actually showing mostly the velocity in red at this point. There's a little bit of the red and green as we switch and factor in the motion of the storm as well. So it's this point that's coming in like this, and then this part that's going out like this. And so some of that, if you combine it together, forms that area of rotation. So that's why that tornado warning exists. It's right along the Bremer-Blackhawk County line, southeast of Denver at this point. No reports of a tornado. That's the good news there, but it is a substantial storm that does have the possibility of producing tornadic activity as it moves through. While storms have stayed pretty scattered at this point, we're not necessarily done with them. This is just the start of at least a few hours of a threat for a scattered storm that could produce damaging wind or a tornado. The short-term threat, of course, is here in far southeastern Bremer County and northeastern Blackhawk County, again, until 5:15. Notice that it says hail size less than 3/4 of an inch. So we actually are not very concerned about hail today at all. That would actually be smaller than penny-sized hail, which is good news. We love fewer threats if we can have it. New information, nothing much new from the National Weather Service at this point. You can see the storm on the lower right side of your screen, the area of concern that could be producing the rotation. You see some of those lines at the very top of your screen. That is at least some indication of some of that rotation within the clouds, but it's very broad. That's the good news there. Again, storms moving to the east about 35 miles per hour. If you live in rural portions of Bremer and Blackhawk County, we've got that going at this point, that storm tracking right along it. We do have that report there too. AJ, meteorologist AJ Rickman with us here today. AJ, what have you seen? Any new information that you've had come in?
Well, there was a funnel cloud reported at 4:34 right along Highway 218 approaching the Bremer County line. So that was, again, a report of a funnel cloud in between Waterloo and Waverly along the Bremer County line. And that was off of that wall cloud we've been watching on the Cedar Falls City Cam over the last 15, 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why they ended up going with that warning was at least some of that ground truth. We certainly still have support from radar views that this storm is rotating, and it does provide that source of concern as well. Yeah, you can see very dark skies looking off to the north from northeast now at this point from Cedar Falls. Again, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, not included in this warning. Much of Blackhawk County, not included in this warning either, as this storm remains very, very small. In fact, it's only about just a matter of miles in terms of its width, in terms of the most intense part. 6 or 7 miles tall or wide from north to south, and from west to east only about 12 miles wide. So these are not the biggest storms that we've seen, but with the rotation, they are supercell storms. And so we are concerned about the possibility of development with those storms as they continue to try to get organized. And we actually have some support at the upper levels starting to get involved, which will probably increase our storm development. And if I go ahead and pull out to the wide view of the TV9 viewing area, you can see more scattered storms over the last hour or so. We're going to go ahead and take the warnings off. Just notice that there were little bits of activity more up toward the Iowa-Minnesota border right now where that severe thunderstorm warning is in effect. That one along the Blackhawk-Bremer County line has been pretty persistent. But we do have little cells popping up down here towards Cedar Rapids and Iowa City as well. Currently just providing some downpours, no severe weather at this point, but it is something that we're watching here. Latest from the National Weather Service, they're keeping the warning going because of the presence of that wall cloud and the rotation on radar. No new reports of tornadic activity, which is good news. Again, we would rather hear no tornadoes and get away without any incident here in eastern Iowa this evening than much trouble. So it's that tornado warning. It's fairly small. It includes just small southeastern portions of Bremer County, northeastern portions of Blackhawk County. North of Cedar Wapsie Road is where the main concern is at this point. Klinger, you're likely seeing some heavy rain, maybe a little bit of gusty wind too, and then it's portions of southern Bremer County near 260th Street, Marquee Road, as well right along the county line, Highway 281, all areas where this area of rotation is taking place within the storm. And it's really located right about here and tracking to the east. That circle with the arrows is what we're keeping an eye on at this point. Meteorologist AJ Rickman, understand, like we've been saying, just because we get out of this one doesn't necessarily mean that we're done for the night.
Absolutely. There's, we've already had one storm before this one that had a tornado warning on it, and there are still some storms that are popping up. A lot of the storm activity so far has been across the northern half of our viewing area. It's been inside of that area that is currently under a tornado watch. If we could pull up Max 2, I'll pull up that tornado watch. That is in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. It's across much of our viewing area. Those primary threats are going to be, again, damaging wind, tornadoes. 1 or 2 cells could produce some isolated large hail, although it doesn't look like hail is the primary threat as of now. But to time things out for you on your pinpoint futurecast, as we go into the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to continue to see those storms that are popping up primarily along north of I-80. That's where most of the storm activity has been this afternoon. However, as we go through the night, the storms are going to increase in coverage. We're also going to have a cold front that's pushing through the late night and overnight hours tonight, and that's going to help push these storms. First of all, it's going to help them form into a line, so we're going to see a lot of that damage. We're going to see a lot of that wind threat come from a line of storms that forms as we get into the later evening and overnight hours for tonight. And as we go into the 8 and 9 o'clock hour, you'll see that line of storms is starting to push towards and a little bit south of I-80 to get the southern half of our viewing area in on this shower and storm action. And we'll continue to watch those showers and storms move from northwest to southeast across our viewing area through the 10 o'clock hour. It does look like the severe threat diminishes and pushes to our south by the time we get to the 11 o'clock hour and the midnight hour tonight. But before we get there, like we've been talking about today, we're going to be dealing with that shower and storm action. Right now, it's mostly north of I-80 where we've been seeing most of the storms pop up. Two storms already have had tornado warnings on them. We did have that funnel cloud report from earlier on the Bremer County line, and we'll be watching as more storms form through this afternoon to see if any of them could produce tornadoes or could end up with tornado warnings on them before later on tonight we will likely see those storms form into more of a line, and you'll see a damaging wind threat be a big concern at that point.
The good news is, though, again, it's at this point stayed relatively scattered. And that pinpoint futurecast view is great because it does give us an indication of what we can expect as we go through the rest of the night. And it is, could be a little bit of a busy night between the next 3 to 4 hours as this activity gets out of here ahead of that cold front. Again, just like you said, so much moisture in place to give us that threat. Go ahead and take Max 1 up on the big box. And I'm actually going to put Decorah in the lower right, just kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the northeast portion of the viewing area. We've kind of lost our view of the Cedar Falls storm at this point, or the northeast Bremer County storm with its distance from the camera, but we will gain it back as it gets a little bit farther to the east at this point. We'll also be able to get a view of it from Independence coming up pretty soon, so that's the good news there. Decorah, though, on the lower right, certainly torrential rainfall, but not a lot in the picture of wind in terms of extreme wind at this point. That's the good news there. So radar view, tornado warning continues for far southeastern Bremer County, far northeastern Blackhawk County as well. That's the one that goes until 5:15. So another 15 minutes here. We'll sort of recap here as we meet the top of the hour here at 5 o'clock. Right along the Blackhawk and Bremer County border is where we're most concerned about this storm showing evidence of rotation. So if you live in Klinger, areas of rural portions of these counties right along the border within about, let's say, 5 miles. So if you're south of 260th Street and north of Cedar-Wapsie Road, this would be the area where the threat is primarily at this point as this area of rotation continues to pass off to the east. There are more storms out there. We've got some here in portions of eastern Iowa, especially in the north at this point. In fact, the strongest looking storm in terms of producing heavy rainfall as well as a little bit of gusty wind is in far northwest Alameda County at this point, where we have a severe thunderstorm warning. In fact, the National Weather Service has increased their indication of damaging winds there to the potential for 70-mile-per-hour winds. It looks like there are still areas of that could produce those strong winds, but so far emergency management in Winnebago County and as well as some of the fire departments out there, haven't seen reports of wind damage, according to the National Weather Service. That is also, again, good news, but again, torrential rainfall certainly looks likely as these storms move through. Decorah seeing some of that in your lower right corner of the picture, as well as Hanover as these storms track to the east. Again, about 30 miles per hour. Damaging winds certainly a possibility for areas along Highway 9, Waukon, as well as Lansing could get involved in some of this here in the very near future at this point. The tornado warning for Bremer and Blackhawk County still continues, so just as a heads up there. And we'll also pull back toward a full view here. We can see additional storms have started to develop here in our northwest zone, individual cells that we're going to keep an eye on. A couple of cells that have intensified a little bit here north of Dubuque as well, and there are little scattered cells in a line stretching from Cedar Rapids down towards the Amanas that are passing to the east too. So a couple of new areas of development, no warnings for any of these white circled areas, but certainly something that we'll be keeping an eye on. Remember, the overall picture of a tornado watch goes until 8 o'clock tonight as well, and that does include the threat for damaging wind as well as tornadoes and large hail. It's not until the cold front moves through that we're really going to be able to scour some of this activity out, which will be a good change of pace. In fact, that change of pace, including somewhat more comfortable conditions on Sunday and Monday, at least for a short period of time. We'll pinpoint here on pinpoint Doppler radar again what's left of this tornado warning. It's very small at this point as the storm continues to the east. It's areas just west of Fairbank where this storm is at its most intense. Only a few minutes left. In fact, it looks like that storm is going to move out of that warning area perhaps just a little bit early in terms of its position within this warning. So far, no word from the National Weather Service. Actually, two different offices cover where this storm is headed in Fayette County, which is here. That's the National Weather Service in La Crosse. We have the far northwestern corner of Buchanan County, which is the National Weather Service in the Quad Cities. So they can, of course, issue warnings at their own choosing. But no indications from the National Weather Service in Des Moines of any real change in this storm. It's maintained its strength, but we haven't seen any new information there. The Emergency Management in Buchanan County reports that they are sounding sirens in Fairbank. Fairbank technically not included in any of these warnings at this point, but there are enough indications from emergency managers up there. They saw a little bit of some low-hanging clouds, and so they went ahead and did better safe than sorry with their sirens up in the far northwestern portion of the county. So if you live there and you're like, hey, what's the deal? We don't have a tornado warning. That's the situation, and that's what they were basing it on. Rotation on the radar from the La Crosse radar is not looking particularly evident at this point. They are pretty far from this storm, though. In fact, this storm is kind of in between all of our radar sites at this point, so it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to pick up exactly what's going on. So we'll go ahead and switch to the Quad Cities radar, which does show where that rotation is. So it's still there at this point when viewed from a distance, but it is broad. There's no particularly tight indication of rotation, which would be indicative of a tornado taking place immediately. No particular indication of change in this storm either, which is not the worst thing. We're going to switch the box on the lower right to Independence, where we can see a little bit of this storm. AJ, what are you checking out here from the southeast, looking northwest toward the storm?
Yeah, Corey, I was looking off to the northwest through the city cam here. You can see that we've got a little bit of a lowering. It's kind of centered behind this big chimney that's kind of sticking up in the middle of your screen. But to the left of it, you can see where you go from those really light colored clouds, and then all of a sudden you get a little bit of those darker clouds that look like they drop a little bit lower against the tree line. So that's our primary area that we're looking at. That's where your wall cloud's going to be. And that's where, if it were to drop a tornado, it would drop it from that region of the storm. And we've been watching as it's kind of moved from left to right across your screen. It's been moving due east over the last half hour or so through this warning, and we'll be keeping an eye on it to see if we can get a better view of it over the next several minutes.
Thanks, AJ. We've only got a few minutes left in this tornado warning. Technically, at this point, it goes until 5:15 for the areas highlighted here on far southeast Bremer, far northeast Blackhawk County. Again, it's been going right along that county line, just near and west of Fairbank. Again, Fairbank, you're not included in this warning at this point from the National Weather Service, although they're keeping a close eye on it. Pictures from storm spotters in the area show the wall cloud staying pretty organized, but not necessarily seeing any sort of lowering consistent with tornadic rotation, which again is good news as these storms continue off to the east. About 10 minutes to go on this particular warning. So we're going to go ahead and switch back to the radar, show how compact this storm is, certainly producing torrential rainfall as it does, probably some really dark skies as it enters. You see a little bit of lightning on your picture there, those little lightning indicators. Not intense, frequent lightning, but it is taking place in parts of those counties. And we'll actually zoom out a little bit. Olwine about to get involved in some of that heavier rain. Independence on your lower right side of your screen, not included in any warning, but you can see the storm off to the northeast. That's the portion of the storm that we're keeping a close eye on. AJ's in the back keeping a close eye on it as well. But the indication of rotation is relatively broad at this point, which is good news. Latest update from the National Weather Service in Des Moines says that there's some heavy rain in Allison. So let's actually do a full wide view here of the TV9 viewing area and get a picture of what's going on across the area. Storms primarily within our northern zones. You can see a lot of lightning with this storm up in Alameda County. So let's pinpoint there first. A severe thunderstorm warning continues until 5:45 for portions of Alameda County. Lots of lightning. Some indication that we could see winds of up to 70 miles per hour with this storm. Hail is a pretty minimal threat with this storm at this point, according to the National Weather Service in La Crosse. And so far, no reports of wind damage, but it is moving through some rural areas in Alameda County at this point, so reports may be a little bit slow to come in. Otherwise, it's passing to the east at about 30 miles per hour, so we'll take it into portions of eastern Alameda County here. Waukon, again, about a few minutes away at 5:14. Church at 5:17. DeSoto at 5:22. In Village Creek at 5:33. Ferryville at about 5:41. That's in southwest Wisconsin, but it is just outside of this warning box. I would be ready for intense storms in Crawford County, Wisconsin as well. Over toward the Gaze Mills area, we could see some of these storms move in. Decorah, at this point, the most intense portion of the storm is out of your area, but still seeing some heavy rain, maybe a little bit of lightning possible. There's heavier storms off to your southwest again in portions of Howard and Chickasaw County. It's down here near New Hampton, where we've seen a storm that has stayed fairly intense moving through the New Hampton area. I'm actually going to turn on our velocity view here real quick just to see how it looks. Nothing too ominous there in terms of rotation, perhaps some broad indications of rotation, but nothing obviously that the Weather Service sees fit to issue any sort of severe thunderstorm warning for, or even a tornado warning. The only warning that we have as far as tornadic activity continues until 5:15 here for far southeastern Blackhawk, or far southeastern Bremer, far northeastern Blackhawk County for just a couple more minutes. That storm actually has exited the area. No extension of the warning into portions of Delaware or Fayette County or Buchanan County, which is good news there, which is what we like to see. No news is often good news in these situations as we come from the National Weather Service. Meteorologist AJ Rickman, any new reports that you caught from the National Weather Service? I'm not necessarily seeing much change there.
No, I'm not seeing much in the way of new reports. I've just kind of been monitoring it on radar. You can see in your city cam there in Independence where we've kind of got the camera centered on where the base of this storm is, where if it were to produce a tornado, it would drop. It's a little tough to see because the trees here are kind of obscuring the view of the bottom of that storm. But based on what we're seeing on radar and based on what we're hearing, it doesn't look like there's an active tornado on the ground. It just looks like the storm has some rotation with it. So it's one of those where we, as well as the National Weather Service, are keeping a close eye on this storm to see if it strengthens and evolves. But like I said, in the immediate, does not appear that there is a tornado on the ground, but we are watching this storm as it does have a wall cloud, and it does have some broad rotation with it. So it's got that radar indicated tornado warning on it, and we will see if the National Weather Service decides to extend the warning, because it does look like now on radar that storm has outpaced the warning box, and the area of concern is now outside of the tornado warning off to the west, or off to the east side of it.
I'd say that's pretty accurate. That's a good call there. It looks like it really has exited that warning. The indication from the National Weather Service in Des Moines is that they're going to go ahead and let the warning expire for their area. Like we mentioned earlier, it's actually moving out of their area. Let's take Max 1 full for a little bit. We've got a view from our downtown city cam in Cedar Rapids. A little shower moving through the area right now. Not severe weather at this point, but certainly heavy rain is moving through that area and providing a brief downpour. But that storm not nearly as organized organized, still developing at this point in the Cedar Rapids area. Otherwise, AJ's view of the Independent City Cam has been certainly one to watch. A broader view of the whole TV9 viewing area here, where we have a handful of storms that are all very scattered at this point. But notice that they still extend as far back west as toward the Mason City area. In fact, this is where we have a cold front that's moving through, and so it really does extend from far southern Minnesota all the way into southwest Iowa. So if you live east of that line, the threat for storms still stays with us until this front gets out of here. So at this point, we still have at least a few more hours to go as these storms go through. We'll pinpoint our northeast and northern zones at this point in terms of providing the biggest threat for severe weather. The ongoing warning that we have is for 5:45 tonight for Alameda and Winnebago County. Primary threat in Alameda County now, where you see that purple, may actually see a little bit of hail out of this storm, which is a little bit different than what we've seen for most storms today. And the indication there is not particularly great, but I wouldn't be shocked if you found some hailstones in northern Alameda County at this point. 70-mile-per-hour winds, also a threat with that. Heavy downpours also very likely as these storms move through. That tornado warning that was in effect for Bremer and Blackhawk County is going to go ahead and expire, although these storms are now moving into Fayette and Buchanan County with little other incident. We'll pinpoint that as well. Oelwein, you're going to get that heavy rain as that storm moves in. No new warning, though. No new reports. We had emergency managers in Fairbank, keeping a close eye on this storm. And as we put on the velocity view just one more time, no strong indication of any sort of rotation there either, which is good news. There is a storm in northern Dubuque County that I want to show real quick here as we wait for this tornado warning to fully expire here. Another intense storm that is not producing severe weather at this point. You can see it here along the Mississippi River in particular. This storm near Potosi, north of Holy Cross, near Sherrill. All of these areas certainly producing heavy rain, as well as probably a little bit of gusty wind in these storms. Some sign of rotation west of Balltown as well, but no warnings from the National Weather Service, at least at this point. So that's the good news there. We're going to keep a close eye on it. Tornado watch continues until 8 o'clock tonight, and there is a new tornado warning as well. We'll go ahead and take a look at that one. It's actually for that storm near Dubuque that we were just talking about. Far northern Dubuque County at this point. It includes Balltown primarily at this point. It's a lot of rural areas up there, a lot of terrain up along the Mississippi River, so it may be difficult or impossible to see a tornado come close to your area before it arrives. So certainly a good idea if you live in northern Dubuque County, right near the bend there on southeastern Clayton County. Seek shelter as soon as you can. This warning goes until 5:30 this evening for that storm as it passes through very rural areas of Dubuque County. We'll go ahead and put the velocity view back on again. If anything, this may actually be some of the more significant rotation we've seen on radar so far at this point. It's this area just west of Balltown where the radar indicates the possibility of a tornado. No reports, again, which is good news. But for at this point, we are still looking at least the possibility. You can really see that opportunity there. The reds and the greens coming together in that rotation indicated by that circle on your screen here. So we'll go ahead and get a storm track on this area of rotation as it moves through. Put the tornado warning back on there so you know what we're talking about. Balltown certainly under threat from this as the storm moves to the east at 35 miles per hour. Other rural areas of northern Dubuque County will even take into southwestern Grant County too. So Balltown within just a matter of minutes. You need to seek shelter immediately. Grant River Recreation Area at 5:33. Finley's Landing, which is right up against the Mississippi, at 5:22 toward the Dickeyville Grotto area in southwestern Grant County. That's also in line for this, not included in the warning at this point, but the threat certainly is there with this area of rotation, which again has shown some signs of intensity over the last couple of minutes. And that's why the National Weather Service went ahead with this tornado warning. We'll put on the radar view again just to show you where this storm is. Plenty of heavy rain. Dubuque, not included. Bankston, not included. Sageville, not included. Holy Cross, not under threat from this storm as it moves off to the east. So that's good news for a lot of communities in Dubuque, a lot of folks. But the chance there is of the tornadic activity taking place. Looks like we got an extension of that warning to Grant County, Wisconsin as well. You can see it here. It goes until 6 o'clock today. Potosi, Platteville, both included in this as the storm tracks off to the east or just slightly north of east over the next 45 minutes. We showed you that storm track that takes it into that area too. Take a look at the new information from the National Weather Service in La Crosse. That is a radar indicated rotation again, much like we talked about with the Quad Cities one, where that storm is. So it's certainly something to keep an eye on. If you live in communities, again, far northern Dubuque County, in and around Balltown, that's where you really, really want to seek shelter as soon as you can as the storm is moving through your area with a particular threat for developing tornado there. We're going to go ahead and put in velocity view again. It's this area, right, again, far northern Dubuque County, very, very close to Balltown. Yeah, just north of Balltown Road actually is where we're seeing some of that development for that warning that goes for another 15 minutes here. And you got to take shelter now if you're in the Balltown area. Remember, we're talking at this point about interior room in your home and staying away from windows. In fact, we'll show you the severe weather safety there. Yeah, get inside. Lowest floor of your home, interior room. Basement is best if you've got it. If not, we'll take a interior room with as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Cover your head and neck with blankets and pillows. Stay there till that threat is passed. For northern Dubuque County, that does include areas that are under threat until 5:30. Get updates from us. National Weather Service NOAA Weather Radio is a good tool as well. And then we also have the ability to keep you informed using the KCRG-TV9 First Alert Weather app. If you don't have that installed, go ahead and grab it. You can also watch our live streams on there, which is the good news. There was a bit of concern about that storm near southern Fayette County, as well as northern Buchanan County. So we'll start over here on Pinpoint Doppler radar and take a look at it. Again, that's not the warning, the storm that has the warning, but it still shows broad area of rotation. No warning in effect for it at this point, but certainly a storm that we're keeping an eye on. Not a lot of lightning with these storms. So as they move through, you'll primarily be hearing heavy rain, but not necessarily a lot of lightning. It's the Dubuque County area that's in this tornado warning until 5:30 tonight. Lightning again indicated as the storm moves through. Meteorologist A.J. Rickman, I know we're taking a look at the Dubuque City Cam here. Anything that you're seeing?
No, this is another one where it looks like the top of the hill and the tree line there is obscuring our best view of the base of the storm. But kind of the area, just, split the screen down the center, the area to the left, that's looking like where our area of concern is. And we're keeping an eye on it as it tracks off to the kind of east-northeast. It's going to pass to the north of Dubuque and cross the Mississippi River here in a little bit. But we're keeping an eye on it as we're hoping to maybe get a view of the base of the storm here over the next 10 to 15 minutes as it continues to track on across the river, and maybe we'll get a better view of it there. But again, right there on kind of the left half of your screen, that is our big area of concern that's hidden by the tree line right now on the tops of the hills. You can see that kind of that clear little slot on the right side of your screen where it's you can see the base of the storm there. But like I said, the left side is left of center of the screen is where our area of concern is, and we'll be monitoring that mostly on radar since we're still trying to get a better view of it as it tracks towards the Mississippi River, getting ready to cross it here in the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, we got great eyes on it using those city cam views. The tornado warning continues until 5:30 today. You see that Dubuque city cam showing certainly the darkness in the Dubuque area. Remember, in Dubuque, you're not included in this warning. It is portions of far northern Dubuque County up toward the Balltown area where we've seen this threat. It's going to cross over here into portions of southwestern Grant County as well in the very, very near future. We're going to go ahead and put on the velocity view again to give you an indication of where this threat is. And it does include portions of it's right on the Mississippi River at this point. It's going to head toward Wisconsin Highway 133, just near the Potosi area. So if you're joining us from Potosi or know some folks up there, just give them a little call. Let them know that this storm is looking pretty threatening on radar and could produce a tornado at any moment. We also do have a new severe thunderstorm warning. This includes southeastern portions of Allen-McKee County as well as Crawford and northern Grant County. That's for that same complex of storms that's really shown some signs of organization and producing a wind threat up toward far northeastern Iowa and far southwestern Wisconsin. Lansing included in this, Harpers Ferry as well, Boscobel off in southwest Wisconsin, Gaze Mills, and other communities right along the Mississippi River. So we'll pinpoint a little bit closer here for portions of Allen-McKee County. This warning goes until 6:15, 60-mile-per-hour winds and penny-sized hail. So they have upped that indication just a hair from what was a relatively minor threat to something that's a little bit stronger in terms of the hail potential. This storm, though, is moving off to the east, I believe, still at about 35 miles per hour. It's picked up a little bit of speed, 40 miles per hour at this point. So that could be a little bit indicative of increasing threat for damaging winds as it spreads to the east. Village Creek at about 5:22. The storm will be in your area. Harpers Ferry at 5:38. Gaze Mills at about 5:50. And it gets toward Marietta by 6:10 toward the very tail end of this warning. So we do have that potential there. Another storm that we are keeping an eye on is the one off toward Dubuque, where we will continue that tornado warning until 5:30 from the National Weather Service. We're going to pan back here, take a look at it as that storm continues to show signs of organization here in far northern Dubuque County, really crossing over into Grant County at this point. That tornado warning goes until 6 o'clock at this point, which is looking rather ominous indeed. That tornado warning continues with that potential for some development. No indication elsewhere of a tornado with other storms, which is good news. We did have a report from northern Buchanan County of a suspicious-looking formation with a cloud there from emergency managers. It looks like, fortunately, that might have just been a little bit of a dust whirl and not necessarily any tornadic development. But I know the National Weather Service is keeping a close eye on storms in southern Fayette County and northern Buchanan County too, which is good news. So we're going to go ahead and put the velocity view on. For northern Dubuque County, mostly clear of this at this point. The rotation is primarily in southern Grant County. You can see it right there along the Mississippi River. It's tracking to the east at, I believe, about 35 miles per hour. This storm has maintained that pace as it heads off into Wisconsin. 35 miles per hour. So we'll go ahead and track that as it goes through the next little while. Potosi, it's really, really close to you. You need to seek shelter indoors, lowest floor of your home as the storm gets closer. Tennyson at 5:33, Platteville at the end of this warning in Grant County till at 5:52, and areas of rural Grant County in and between all of this here as this area of rotation just about crosses the river. Remember, the warning for northern Dubuque County only goes until 5:30. But it does look like we have a new tornado warning in effect for a portion of the viewing area. It's going to include far northern Buchanan and Delaware counties. So this is kind of along that line where the two National Weather Service offices kind of have their boundary. Of course, you got to set the boundary somewhere, and here's where it is. That goes until 6:15 this evening. Radar indicated rotation, which we do see on radar. It's the same storm that had the tornado warning earlier in Black Hawk and Bremer County. That is the new warning that goes until 6:15. So this storm includes areas like Aurora, Backbone State Park, Strawberry Point will be affected by the rain. Hazelton is very close to the area of rotation with the storm. Aurora is too. Dundee, Greeley, all included within this warning. There's the National Weather Service in La Crosse filling in that. So now imagine these two boxes are one, and that is the tornado warning that we have for this storm. Both go until 6:15, and that's what we're facing there. So we do have a possibility of a tornado. Both are showing indications of radar indicated rotation, not necessarily a report, although Fayette County emergency managers did say that there was a report of a funnel cloud near Olwine, probably just southeast there near Highway 150 if I had to put a point on it. So far, that's the indication that we have from the National Weather Service. Here's a look at the velocity view of this storm. I'm actually going to pan a little bit to try to pull up the radar from the Quad Cities instead. It's this area that we're watching in terms of providing that rotation just near and east of Hazelton. If you're in Hazelton, I wouldn't say necessarily get away from your safe shelter at this point, but we are keeping an eye on it from that distance. And we will go ahead and switch to our Independence City cam. AJ, if you want to go ahead and navigate that one a little bit. Try to find it's a little bit of a difficult spot right now just because of the orientation of our camera as we're looking off to the north. Manchester might be one you could take a look at too as the storm continues off to the east. You can see some heavy rain report Just near Old-Wine, no tornado reports show up there on our screen. There's our polygons in terms of the tornado warning. Includes areas like Edgewood, Strawberry Point, Old-Wine technically included in this as well. And we'll go ahead and get this indication moving east at 40 miles per hour. So we'll put a storm track on the portion of the storm that is showing that rotation. Stanley at 528, Lamont at 541. Backbone State Park. So if you know some folks out there that are doing some camping or perhaps visiting the park today, it was a nice afternoon. Summer's kind of steamy, but a little day that you can get outside and enjoy perhaps. Go ahead and give them a heads up if you can't. Send them a text message, give them a call. Cell service not great out there, but any sort of help would certainly be welcome for those folks. Toward Edgewood at about 6 o'clock, Oneida at 6:04. Just grabbing a quick drink there, folks. Excuse me there. Looking at this area of rotation, certainly does provide the threat for tornadic development. Again, not necessarily seeing that. Switch a radar view here and you get a better view of that as it heads through southern Fayette County, northern Buchanan County. And we see those points of view there. You can see on the lower right side of your screen, Independence looking off to the north. Independence, again, not included in this warning, but it does include portions of Buchanan County. Manchester also not included in this warning, but areas to your northwest, certainly under the threat. We're going to take one more look at that warning that's in far northern Dubuque County. I'm actually going to back out here for just a moment, so bear with me. And then we're going to take a look at that one that does include areas near Balltown as well as southwestern Grant County. The warning in Grant County goes until 6 o'clock. It's this area of rotation that is in the far left side of your screen. Go ahead and put the indicator on there. Near Potosi, very, very close to there in just the next couple of minutes. And it's going to be moving through portions of Grant County. Closer to Platteville in those areas, and that's the threat that we face. Meteorologist AJ Rickman, you've been keeping an eye on the city cams at this point. Kind of tough to see from the distance that we're at this point, looks like.
Absolutely. I've been trying to find a view of our storm near Old-Wine right now from the Manchester City cam. That has been a little more difficult, but kind of switching back to the Dubuque City cam real fast, I'm going to take a really fast glance over that way. Did notice as it loads for us here, that storm is getting ready to cross the Mississippi River, and if it could pull up here, there we go. So here we go. Dubuque City cam, you can see there on the right side of your screen, the clouds do look a little bit lower there. You got little, some fingerling-looking things that are kind of stretching out of the clouds. Those are not necessarily tornadoes, but that is the base of our storm. That is our area of concern. And as this storm tracks off to the east-northeast, north of Dubuque, and as it gets across the Mississippi River and continues off to the east, that's the area of concern that will be worth watching for that storm. Now, switching back over to the storm that is currently pulled up on the bottom right corner of your screen, it looks like our best shot at getting a view of that storm is going to be the Manchester City cam. So let me see if I can get us pulled up there. So the Manchester City cam, it's a little kind of tough to see there. Like I said, the problem with this is the storm is still kind of far away, but as it gets closer, assuming it does stay organized and we have some level of rotation with it, as that storm moves to the west and gets closer to Manchester and our Manchester City cam, we'll probably get a better view of it. Now, Manchester, you guys are not currently in that warning. The warning is currently to the north of you. It does look like that storm is going to pass to your north. So if you're in the Manchester area, you're not currently under the gun. We're just using your city cam to try and get a better view at the base of the storm as it passes off to the north.
Great reminder. Sometimes we just have to use those distant views for that opportunity to see some of that storm activity. We have the indication of a wall cloud as viewed from Cassville Emergency Management as that storm near Dubuque crosses into southwestern Wisconsin. Otherwise, we are still keeping an eye on that storm in southern Fayette County. It looks like a new update from the National Weather Service. Go ahead and check out what they have to say about it. Does indicate still radar indicated rotation at this point. So far, no sign of a tornado that we have. We'll pinpoint again, just to get the latest information here. Continues until 6:15. Radar indicated storm with the possibility of a tornado. It looks like it's primarily the rotation in southern Fayette County at this point. So if you live in southern Fayette County along the county border with Buchanan County and southern Clayton County along the county border with Delaware County, two areas that need to be in your safe shelter. Take those tornado-related precautions as the storm progresses to the east. We're going to go ahead and put a storm track back on it to give you that indication. Strawberry Point very much in line for this storm as the storm moves to the east. Maquoketa River Wildlife Area, if you're familiar with that, 543. Strawberry Point at 548. Edgewood at about 558. Over toward Elkport in Clayton County at about 608 at this point as the storm tracks to the east. We'll put a little loop on it. See that storm as it evolves. The rotation actually has become a little bit clearer in the past few minutes, so the storm certainly maintains its strength as it passes to the east. Any update from the National Weather Service in the Quad Cities? They're still saying radar indicated rotation for their end of the storm as well. As it passes to the east. A little piece of housekeeping for our northern Dubuque County. Your warning has expired at this point. It was until 5:30. So if you live in the Balltown area up towards Sherrill, the threat has moved on from your area for now, although the indication is that that threat at least continues into the evening. In fact, the latest indication from the Storm Prediction Center, who is responsible for issuing our watches, does sort of highlight these sort of same areas. I'm going to go ahead and switch to a full view here of our radar for where we've seen the most intense storms so far. And that's where we're going to see these most intense storms kind of stick with us in the next little while. It's this area. Grant County is included in that tornado warning until 6 o'clock. But it's this area from near Olwine over toward Potosi, around Prairie du Chien, West Union, that has the ingredients in place, at least in the next couple of hours, to potentially produce a tornado, according to their analysis. Storm Prediction Center folks, really, really solid on this type of stuff. Obviously, this is their whole job, is to keep an eye on severe storms and sort of provide analysis for that. And they're really good about giving us a little insight into those areas as they pass through. But the good news is that so far, no reports of any sort of tornadic activity in terms of any sort of touchdowns at this point. Put a loop on this to show you the overall movement. That storm west of Strawberry Point, which has the tornado warning, is the one that does maintain the highest threat in the TV9 viewing area of any sort of tornadic activity. If you live in Strawberry Point, you should be seeking safe shelter now. Let's go over those safety rules once again. During a warning, you should be headed for the indoors. Head toward the lowest floor of your home, an interior room. So if you don't have a basement, that's okay. Go ahead and get in a closet, a bathroom toward the center of your house, and put as many walls between you and the outside as you possibly can. That will help to keep you safe. That is the good news there. The other thing you can do, grab some blankets, pillows, and try to stay safe that way. Get something to cover your head and neck. That will keep you from any sort of injury there, which is good news. And of course, keep with us. We'll give you updates between now and the expiration of this warning, which goes until 6:15 for southern portions of Fayette and Clayton County, northern portions of Buchanan and Delaware County, where these storms have developed. So we'll pinpoint here into our northern zone of the viewing area. Northeast zone in particular has seen the most activity at this point. It's this storm that's straddling the county lines between Fayette, Buchanan, Delaware, and Clayton counties, right near that Four Corners area where those counties converge. Where the rotation is at this point. Do want to just give a heads up to the folks in far eastern Alameda County. We're not forgetting about you either. The severe thunderstorm warning continues until 6:15 for a line of storms at this point. I would also watch out for portions of southern Winneshiek, northern Clayton, southern Alameda, and northern Fayette counties for some very heavy rain in the short term. Storms kind of lining up parallel there. Multiple storms going to move through in the same area in a short period of time, and they're producing torrential rainfall. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a very heavy rainfall total there in a pretty short amount of time. So if you live in those areas and flood-prone areas, just kind of heads up and be careful in those areas. No flash flood warnings at this point. But the tornado warning that we're keeping an eye on primarily at this point is in areas near Strawberry Point. we really do want you to stay safe out there as this storm moves through. We'll go ahead and switch radar view to a static view here and zoom in, pinpoint as close as we can. You see just north of the Aurora area, Backbone State Park getting involved, Strawberry Point very much involved, Maryville seeing some very heavy rain at this point, but the tornadic activity is very near your area too, so you do want to stay in safe shelter there. You can see it's this area here, pretty evident on radar. Again, these storms are unfortunately kind of right in between our radar sites, and so that does make it a little bit more difficult to pick up some of this rotation. So some of this is actually taking place off the ground, but that indication is there, certainly providing that threat for areas, especially along and south of Highway 3. So if you live north of there, up toward, let's say, Arlington, you're not included in this warning, and you are actually in decent shape. But if you live in areas like Aurora and Maryville and Strawberry Point, things are a little bit more dicey as the storm is moving through. Indication from a storm chaser in the area near Aurora, a wall cloud visible from their perspective. No indication of a tornado at this point from their perspective, but the possibility is there as that storm moves through. Other indications from the National Weather Service are just that the potential for rotation continues, but no necessarily indication of changes with this activity, which is good to see sometimes, that we don't have any sort of new information there. Tornado warning continues until 6:15 this evening. Normally you'd be seeing World News tonight at this point. We apologize for taking that up, but we do have that threat for some potentially damaging weather here in portions of Fayette, Clayton, Buchanan, and Delaware counties within these red boxes. Those are the areas where we could see some tornadic development as this storm moves to the east. You see it's moving at a pretty steady clip at about 35 to 40 miles per hour, and it does still contain areas of rotation that provide some of that danger. Meteorologist A.J. Rickman here with me this evening. A.J., any new indications that from your perspective back here?
No, not much has changed. It's just kind of been holding steady. The storm has been rotating, but as we've said, it hasn't dropped a tornado yet that we have been made aware of or that's been made super clear to us. However, the storm is still rotating, so please take it seriously. If you're in the path of this storm, go ahead and follow those basic tornado safety steps. Go to the lowest level of your home, get away from any windows, find something to cover your head, whether it's a bike helmet, a blanket. If the closest thing you can grab is an aluminum pot, as silly as it may sound, putting that over your head in the event that you do get hit, and it keeps your head safe from any flying debris. Although, like we said, at this point, this storm, while it is rotating, does not appear to have a tornado on the ground. The warning and any spotter accounts we've seen has shown that the rotation is radar indicated, and while it does have a wall cloud, we have not gotten any reports of a tornado on the ground. I've been driving the city cams around, trying to get a look at the base of the storm. It's been getting closer to Manchester. Again, Manchester, you're not in the path of it. This storm is going to pass to your north, but we've been using your city cam to see if we can get a view of this storm as it passes to your north. We've been, as it gets closer and closer, we'll be getting better views of it. Not seeing anything from the Manchester city cam right now that would identify a wall cloud or anything like that, but we'll be keeping an eye on things, and we'll certainly be watching through the city cams and on radar to keep you all updated on where the storm's tracking and what threats will be associated with it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of having all those tools in our toolbox here at the TV9 Weather Lab that we can use to help keep viewers safe. And we certainly have the opportunity to sort of dissect these storms from multiple angles, providing you team coverage here this evening. So we'll go ahead and take a wider view. There are a couple of storms here that are otherwise pretty intense looking here on radar. Again, tornado warning continues for those areas highlighted in red. Northern Iowa, though, has seen some of the most intense activity so far today. Severe thunderstorm warning includes portions of Val-McKee County until 5:45, but there is a broader area that goes until 6:15 that does include the threat for 60 miles per hour winds. Now, there is a little bit of an indication near the St. Lucas area in far northern Fayette County, maybe a little bit of rotation that way. We'll go ahead and put on our single site radar here and take a look from St. Lucas. You see a little bit of that curvature in the storm that could indicate a little bit of a hook echo here, which could be indicative of some rotation. So we're going to keep a close eye on that one right now. At this point, no warning in effect for northern Fayette County or southern Winnebago County, but that storm certainly looking a little bit ominous in terms of its ability to be organized. The view from the National Weather Service's perspective does keep things, fortunately, fairly quiet in that area for now, but we will keep a close eye on it. Storm near Waverly as well, producing some heavier rain, but the one that is producing the rotation that could include the risk for a tornado is still here very, very close to the Strawberry Point area. We're going to put the velocity view on one more time. That's the view from our La Crosse radar. It shows pretty broad rotation at this point in terms of what we're seeing there. I'm going to take off the La Crosse radar, instead put on the Quad Cities radar. It's this area just southwest of Strawberry Point where we have the threat for some pretty decent rotation there. So it's really in the corner of the counties here where we're seeing this rotation at this point. So if you live near Maryville, areas west of Highway 13 and far southwestern Clayton County, you will want to seek shelter now inside a safe area, the lowest floor of your home with walls in between you and the outside. Strawberry Point, very much so, in line for this rotation to pass close to your area as this warning continues until 6:15. Latest indication from the National Weather Service aligns with our thoughts on that. It still does include far southeastern Fayette County and far southern Clayton County in this warning. They also indicate that rotation near the Strawberry Point area, so please heed this warning as it moves into your spot. But no indication, at least, of a report of a tornado at this point, which is what we like to see, at least in terms of ground truth. And there is at least some indication of an increase in lightning activity with this storm. I'm going to go ahead and put on the radar again and then turn on our lightning tracker as well. Yeah, you see a lot more in terms of lightning strikes, which is actually a pretty helpful tool. That can be very much a good indication of a storm that is strengthening, even lightning strikes out ahead of the storm toward the Edgewood area. So please use your ability, if you live in far northern Delaware County, to get inside, because even outside of these warning areas, if you find yourself out and about in lightning, that certainly could cause some trouble in a pretty big hurry, and we don't want you to be stuck in a place that you don't want to be, in an unsafe location. It's this portion of far southern Clayton County that we're most concerned. Strawberry Point very much in the area of rotation for this storm as things are moving off to the east. A view here with a radar loop, see that lightning, see how much more has really indicated over the past little while. That is a notable change, a change of a indication for this storm to be changing. In fact, we're gonna go ahead and put on a strike counter here. 57 strikes at this point in terms of how many lightning strikes are out there over the last 15 minutes, which is actually quite a few. That is a pretty notable amount of lightning just within the last little while. Yeah, 59 strikes now at this point. So that does certainly indicate a well-organized storm. It has actually grown a little bit taller as well. And so that is also an indication of a storm that is strengthening if it gets higher up into the atmosphere. So certainly something that you'll want to treat with respect here as this storm moves to the east. We're going to put our velocity view on again, put a storm track on it too, just so you know exactly where this storm is headed. View from La Crosse is a little bit less useful at this point. View from Quad Cities, which we just switched to, certainly shows the rotation that's here right near Strawberry Point. Excuse me there. Right near Strawberry Point. So we're going to pinpoint here in far southwestern Clayton County, just to give you a real indication of where this storm is headed. Strawberry Point, near the Maquoketa River wildlife area, is where we are most concerned. If you live in Strawberry Point, you definitely want to be in your safe shelter as the storm is very, very close to you. We're getting a report of the tornado warning continuing. There is now a report in Grant County, actually. Let's go ahead and show that for folks that live off in that area. Grant County, Wisconsin, under a tornado warning until 6 o'clock, right at the top of the hour. And they just had a report of a tornado near Platteville, or near Dickeyville. So that warning does continue. So if you live in Grant County, that is now a confirmed tornado for portions of far eastern Grant County. It would be this area that is just west of Platteville that is showing some rotation. We'll actually go ahead and switch back to the La Crosse radar where we see that rotation. Yeah, it's this area right here. And with a report from emergency management of a tornado on the ground, you'll certainly want to seek shelter. Areas along and north of Highway 151 in far southwest Wisconsin. Certainly showing at least some danger of a tornado developing imminently if it's not still yet on the ground. Some pretty intense rotation there, certainly based on those ground truth reports as well. So we thank our emergency management agencies all around eastern Iowa and southwest Wisconsin for some of that insight from actual humans on the ground. Certainly augments the radar, which can be a great tool, but it's not the only tool. We certainly need the help from eyes and ears of folks out there. But the tornado warning in southern Clayton County, southeastern Fayette County, and northern Buchanan and Delaware counties continues until 6:15. It's this area near Strawberry Point that in particular has the indication of rotation. And that's what we would like to tell folks about and keep people safe. Looks like the Buchanan County portion of this warning has been dropped by the National Weather Service, which makes a lot of sense. Really has moved away from areas like Aurora and Lamont, but Backbone State Park certainly in an area that is still under threat for these storms. You see that both these warnings have been trimmed back to just now include 2 counties, specifically the area of southern Clayton County as well as northern Delaware County, with this storm still producing some of that rotation. AJ, we got a view from Independence. I know we got that on our docket as well. What have you seen back here? Any indications of new reports from the National Weather Service?
Nothing much that I've seen in terms of tornadoes with new reports. There is a report on that storm over in Wisconsin of quarter-inch hail, but back on our storm over just north of Manchester, if we could pull up Max 2, I've got the Manchester City Cam pulled up on there. We've got it zoomed in here on what could be our wall cloud, our area of interest right there, just kind of in the center of your screen. It's kind of hazy, kind of hard to see, but again, it looks like that kind of hazy spot off to the right, kind of right of center of your screen. Looks like that's going to be our area of concern that we're watching for rotation and for any tornadic development as this storm continues to track off to the due east and passes to the north of Manchester. So again, Manchester, we're using your city cam, but you guys are not currently in the warning and not at risk from this storm.
Yes, that's correct. Good reminder for the folks of Manchester. Nothing to worry about in particular there, but that is certainly what we're looking at. That's actually a pretty good view there from the city cam, AJ, looking off to the north from Manchester of some pretty ominous clouds as we look off that direction, looking that way. The rotation is very near Strawberry Point. If you live in that area, make sure to be in shelter. If you live to the east of Strawberry Point in rural areas of southern Clayton County, near and north of Edgewood, which is, of course, right on the border there, that's where you'll want to certainly be in your shelter. Those 2 warnings continue at this point. Latest update from the National Weather Service in La Crosse is that they're keeping a close eye on it. They do not see the tightest rotation on this storm in terms of a tornado taking place right now.